guys, how's it going? My name is Nico Garcia. I'm from 4x4 Project. We're an off-road suspension specialist from Spain, and we're sitting right here in Salt Lake City, Utah at this moment, where we work with our partner Evictus, who's a van conversion specialist, and we've been doing some testing with them on a fancy new suspension system we developed. And we recently went to Baja to test it. I know many of you couldn't make it, so let's show the details to all of you that want to see more of it. By the way, we're sitting in a Mercedes Sprinter van right here. That's why we're not doing it in the shop, because this van is one of the actual vans that went with us to Baja and came back with no damage at all. We put some hard miles on them and they held up pretty nice. They did everything they should, and all the people that got to take a ride with us, they got out with a smile, so I think it made us all very happy. All right, let's start with the front shock. So this is your front shock. It looks used. Why? Because it's a prototype that, again, went with us to Baja and came back on one of our vans. And I'm going to tell you a couple of details to let you know what we did different, what's new on them, and what the differences are. So, as you can see, the first difference that pops up to the eye is we have a big external reservoir on the shock itself. It is a complete full replacement strut. So you take your OEM shock out, put this one in, it fits right into your factory mounting points. That's a plus that I think other systems don't have. We're not adding any brackets or any shocks, we're just replacing your original front strut. The next big thing is we have a large 2.65-inch body with monotube technology. It's not a twin tube, not a small piston, it's a large 60mm digressive piston. And that makes up for most of the performance difference, because with a large piston, you'll get much better damping, much more control, much more comfort, and an overall much better performance. By adding the external reservoir, what we did is adding a lot of oil and nitrogen capacity. So again, you can beat on the shock much longer before it starts, losing performance, foaming, fading, whatever. One of the highlights, which probably is hard to see in camera, is this part right here. It's a special valve that's based on the design of Bilstein racing components. Bilstein calls it an anti-cavitation valve. And this valve is basically holding in here in the reservoir a secondary piston with its own shim stack, which gives us a much broader range of tuning in terms of weight, terrain, speeds we're traveling at. And the good thing is both pistons and valve stacks in combination make this shock fully self-adjustable. And that's a big highlight. No clickers, nothing to adjust. No need to learn how to adjust it, you just put it in and go. When you're going easy, the shock is soft and comfortable. When you start to push it, it ties up, it firms up, and it gives it the stability you need, to hit corners fast, to go over rough terrain at speeds that we didn't even think we could achieve before installing the suspension. So you should definitely come and try it. A few other details we've worked on. We have a massive aluminum bracket to keep the reservoir from shaking loose. This one is still raw aluminum. In the future, they will be nice and anodized to add a bit to the better look. But here it's just a raw aluminum basic version that we've been testing. Inside here, you cannot see this. There's a triple seal package which is just intended obviously to seal good, but also to extend the lifetime of these shocks. So you should have many trouble-free and worry-free miles where you can just enjoy your van going over whatever terrain you choose to. We machined a special piston rod out of a very strong material, and over that we added a hard chrome plating that's much thicker as you usually get, again looking for maximum longevity of the parts. We have a couple details, like here you have your nitrogen fill valve, which is secured with an extra cap, and then again another cap. This is just small details in case a stone hits your cap. Well, it's just going to be damaging the cap and not your fill valve, so you're not going to be losing any nitrogen pressure. For those of you wanting to run these for a long time, the good news is they're fully rebuildable. So either us or Evictus will have all spare parts in stock. This means if need be, because you've done a lot of miles to them, I don't know, you've run into a rock or something, bent something starts getting loose, you can replace just that one part and your shock is good to go again, so no need to throw them away. I think that pretty much covers the front shock. We'll be back with you in a second with the details about the rear shock. Guys, as promised, we're back with the rear shock now. I'm holding it here in my hand, well, on my tie, because it's a bit heavy. And well, it's a coilover shock, as you can see. Again, we take as a base a 2.65-inch body, 60mm monotube shock. So you got all the room for performance in there. We have a large external reservoir, again with an ACV valve. We have a big spring on it, more on that later. Adjustable threaded body with an adjustable collar to dial in your ride height or whatever you need in terms of extra support for your extra weight. On the top we have a big eyelet with a big heim joint. At the bottom it's just the same. The reservoir is essentially the same as in the front, it's just a little larger because we have more room, and if we have more room we wanted to use it to fit more in it. So what do we have here? Why did we do this? Well, as you all know, once you start building these vans, the rear usually gets heavy. It starts sagging a bit, and it not only looks weird, but it doesn't leave your suspension any up travel, so things get very uncomfortable. So we improved the shock absorber, and then to compensate for the extra weight and maybe even give it a bit more ride height, although that was not a priority, we added a coilover spring. Why a coilover spring? Because it's very flexible. You can adjust it very easily without any special tools. You can even change springs to different rates if needed, although I think we'll get it dialed in pretty well within pretty close specs for everybody. And yeah, the challenge was to fit all this in the vans, and I'm gonna show you now the brackets we made for that because I'm sure you're gonna like them. So we start off with this guy here. That's your rear upper mount. It ties into your Sprinter frame at 4 points. The original shock mounting location. Here another one, the shock goes right here. You'll see it later on the van. Now the shock is mounted in a double shear way, so there's no risk of shearing off your shock mounting bolt as there is on the stock vans. We have 2 more mounting points here that also go into the frame. All these areas here are just touching the frame, so the load gets spread along a very, very large area. We just do that to make sure your unit body is not suffering with the extra damping force or the spring load. At the same time, we recommend to apply a bit of body glue like Sikaflex or something like that on the rear, on the top, so that all the dirt, grime and dust is not getting between your frame and the new bracket. So that's for the top. It's all pretty thick steel. It's 6mm steel, so believe me, you won't break it that easy. We go on to the lower bracket, which is this one. This one is actually a great improvement over your stock setup. It ties into your 4 U-bolts. On this hole here, it goes into your original shock mounting point, and this is where we mount the new shock. So as you can see, first improvement is the shock sits a bit higher, so it's further away from damage, rocks, whatever's on the ground. We've added a little bit of a skid plate to it, so if you were to hit something, you'll just slide over it and not damage your shock. Again, we're distributing the forces now over 5 mounting points instead of 1, so things get much more rigid and much stronger, and the likeliness of a failure is reduced by a lot. A couple more details we worked on. This bracket is just like a bed that will hold your reservoir. It goes on the rear of the frame using stock mounting holes that are already existing, so no drilling, no cutting, no welding at all for this kit. It's just a bolt on. Your reservoir will sit here, attached with 2 tube clamps, so it's nice and tucked away and away from danger. As a last detail, we have these little guys here. This is just a brake line relocator. What it does is it takes your brake line, your rear brake line, places a bit further up, so you have more clearance with the shock, and where you're making better use of the travel available. So guys, I think we covered it all. Next step is we go check out the van. Here we're now actually driving the van we were sitting in before, and we just left the Evictus shop. We're looking for a couple different scenarios to show you our on-road capabilities with our suspension system. So look forward, it's gonna be fun. Alright guys, so we came to this road. As you will see in a moment, there's a lot of dips here. They're pretty deep. People are going through like at 5 miles an hour. We're just rushing through them at like 35, 40. We don't expect you to do that, but it just shows that we have much more bump absorption capacity, which is a nice way to keep your suspension from bottoming out and your van in one piece. And we also have some pretty heavy railroad crossings that we're just about to go through. We'll show them to you closer in a minute. And as you will see, the van remains much more stable than you would expect it. Alright guys, so one of the key points we want to highlight of our suspension is the on-road stability. We got a lot of questions about this. We've worked a lot on keeping the van stable on the road. We came here to a pretty wide road where we can demonstrate this. So let's say you're driving down a road, you have to avoid something at speed. We're doing about 35 miles an hour, and now we're just cornering really hard, much harder than we ever could with our stock suspension. And as you can see, except for our poor cameraman who's shaking, the van is remaining stable, and it's good to know that you're driving down the road and you have that peace of mind that if you have to avoid something, you can. Alright guys, we're back on the highway heading home. You've seen how stable the van has performed on the road. We're turning it pretty hard and it remained just settled, which is what it should do. And here on the highway, there's not much to demonstrate, but all that stability translates into stability in the highway as well. So when going through heavy crosswinds or taking over those big trucks, big 18-wheelers, the lateral stability really shows. You can sit relaxed with the suspension, whether with your stock suspension, you'll be fighting the winds. So it's a much better feeling. You'll get wherever you're going much more relaxed. Alright guys, so we're back at the Invictus shop. We came back from this test drive where we tried to demonstrate you what our suspension system can do on the road. And to sum up what our system is really capable of, I'll leave you now with a couple of our cool off-road clips. Don't miss them. See you next time.